Hello there, Compups. In this video, we're going to be reviewing the new weapons in the 5.3 weapon banners. We got two new 5-star weapons, 1,000 Blazing Suns, which is Moika's signature weapon, and the Starcaller's watch. We're just going to be reviewing both of these weapons on different characters in the game and seeing if they're worth pulling for your account or not. Alright, without further ado, let's start off with Moika's signature weapon. It's called 1,000 Blazing Suns. It's a claymore. It's going to have 740 base attack at level 90, which is super high even for a 5-star weapon. And it's going to have a very small crit rate substat with 11%. Those are not bad stats since a lot of characters would appreciate the high base attack, especially claymore users, but in general it would have been much more universal if it was a little more balanced, maybe less base attack, more of the substat. That probably would have been a little better. But for Moika herself, she doesn't need a lot of crit rate because she is going to use the Natlan set, so that makes more sense for her, I guess. And I think we're probably going to be seeing more of these weapons with super high base attack and low substat with more Natlan DPSs. Now moving on to the passive, which is the more important thing, you're gonna have gain the Scorching Brilliance effect when you use an elemental skill or elemental burst. This effect is gonna increase your crit damage by 20% and it's gonna increase your attack by 28% for 6 seconds, and it can only happen once every 10 seconds. So technically it's gonna have 4 seconds of downtime, and you can activate it just whenever you press your elemental skill or burst. You press it, you're gonna have the crit damage increase and attack for 6 seconds and then a downtime of 4 seconds. So within those 4 seconds, even if you press your elemental skill or burst again, you're not gonna have the effect. But also with the second part of the passive, you have while this effect is active, its duration is going to be increased by 2 seconds after normal charge attacks deal elemental damage. So if you already have this effect, you use your elemental skill or burst. Whenever you hit opponents with your elemental normal attacks or charge attacks, you can increase this effect by 2 seconds with 3 times. So you're going to have up to 6 seconds increase. That means the total effect duration is going to be 12 seconds. So it's going to have full uptime and more. But you got to focus on something. It only activates when you deal elemental damage with your normal attacks. If your normal attacks deal just normal like physical damage, it's probably not going to work, which is bad with a lot of characters. And then you have the last part of the passive is that additionally, when the equipping character is in the Night Soul Pleasant state, your effects are going to be increased by 75%. And when the character is off field, it's going to pause the timer pretty much, so you can just keep it indefinitely when the character is off field. Just super good. But those effects are pretty much just limited to when the character is from Natlan. So yeah, it's pretty much just Moika who's going to be using these. But yeah, talking about Moika and other characters, let's move on to characters and see which characters can use this weapon. So basically, any character who wants high base attack and wants some crit rate, and crit damage and some attack can use this weapon, which is pretty universal. But when we look at the conditions that you need to keep this fully activated, the character needs to also have a short cooldown under elemental skill or burst so they can activate this passive, because if you don't press your elemental skill or burst, it's not going to activate in the first place. And they need to also deal elemental damage with their normal attacks so they can extend the duration and have it for a meaningful time. Otherwise, 6 seconds is going to be too short and this weapon is probably not going to be as good. So yeah, let's skim through these very quickly. First of all, we have D-Luke is probably going to be one of the best users, honestly. Obviously, he won't take advantage out of the Natlan stuff, but he can take advantage out of pretty much the rest of the whole weapon. He can take advantage out of the high base attack. It's going to be pretty good on D-Luke. The crit rate is going to be pretty good. Crit damage is going to be pretty good. His elemental skill does have a short cooldown. You can use it a couple of times in a rotation, so you can just activate this passive whenever. And then also he deals elemental damage with his normal attacks, so you can just extend the duration, which is pretty good. So yeah, that means it's gonna have good uptime on D-Luke. It can give him a lot of stuff he needs. I would say D-Luke, it's gonna be pretty good on him. Razor, I don't think it's gonna work. He does have a short cooldown for his elemental skill, but the problem is he doesn't deal elemental damage with his normal attacks. He deals just physical damage, usually at least, if you're not playing him with like a character that changes that. And in that case, this weapon is not gonna be good because you won't be able to extend the passive's duration and it's gonna be too short. But if you're playing with a character that can change the elemental damage, if his normal attacks, then maybe. But in general, it's not gonna work. Beidou, I guess it might work, but it's not gonna be like super good. Noelle, it can be decent, I guess. So I think it's gonna be pretty decent on Noelle. Even the high base attack, she can take advantage out of it. She still scales with attack technically. So yeah, it's not gonna be wasted. I think it can be decent on Noelle. You can just activate your elemental burst and you're gonna have the weapon buffs for pretty much the whole duration. It's like, what's her elemental burst last for? I think it's 12 seconds too, or 15 maybe. So yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty decent on Noelle. Yun, I mean, I guess workable as a main DPS, but in general, no. Same thing with Shen Yan, I guess it can be decent as a main DPS. Eula, no, because she deals physical damage, and you probably cannot really change that, so no, it's not gonna work on Eula. Sayu, no, it's just not the weapon for him. Ito is the exact same thing with Noelle, so I guess it can be decent. Their only problem is that they don't really appreciate the high base stack as much. It's still pretty good for them, but it's not too good, so it will be mid for Ito, but it's gonna be pretty decent 5-star weapon. It's definitely gonna be usable. Dory, I don't think so. Dea, it can work, I guess, but it's also not the best. Probably Kave, probably not. Fremine, probably not. Navia, probably one of the best users for this weapon too. She could deal elemental damage, just the whole thing's work for her, except the nice soul point stuff, obviously. But yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty good on Navia, probably an S tier weapon maybe. Gaming, it can be pretty decent, but probably nothing like superficial. Kinish, probably one of the few characters who can fully utilize the passive, but also not for too long, because he cannot really extend it. He doesn't really deal much damage with his normal attacks or charge attacks. They're gonna count as his elemental skills damage, so yeah, I don't think it's gonna work on him fully, but it's still gonna buff some of his hits, so I guess it can work. But it won't be like top tier weapon. It probably like A tier, maybe low S tier weapon. I guess that's top tier, but it's not like the best weapon for him for sure. And then finally we have Moika. Obviously it's her signature. It's gonna be better than pretty much every single weapon by a long shot. So if you want it for Moika, then just go for it. It's gonna be pretty good. So yeah, I think it's actually quite fairly universal. It ain't too bad for a weapon, especially for the latest weapons we've seen before. That one's actually not bad. You can use it on quite a lot of characters, either as a stat stick or even the passive can really work pretty well on a lot of characters. Even if you don't have like the capabilities to extend the duration, you can just use it for the 6 seconds and then it's done. So it won't be useless on a lot of characters, which makes it a decent universal weapon, I guess. Only thing I don't really like is, as I said, the high base stack and then the very low substat. It would have been much better if it was more balanced, but in general, it's definitely not a bad weapon. So yeah, as a rating, I guess I'd give it like a good 3.5 out of 5. Now moving on to the second weapon, which is the Starcaller's Watch. This is going to be Sitlali's weapon. That one's pretty much the opposite. It's going to have a super low base stack for a 5-star weapon and then a huge elemental mastery substat, which is also not good, by the way. You want your weapon to have more balanced stats for it to be more like universal, I guess. But yeah, it's just going to give you a huge elemental mastery substat, 265 at level 90, which is huge. And then we move on to the substat and it's just more elemental mastery. It's going to give you 100 elemental mastery just by equipping this weapon. So you just equip this weapon on a character. When it's level 90, it's going to give you 365 elemental mastery, which is super huge. That's pretty much a lot of characters' needs of elemental mastery already met. And then you're going to gain the Mirror of Night effects within 15 seconds after the equipping character creates a shield, which is where the problems start. When you do that, it's going to give the current active party member 28% increased damage to nearby opponents, and it's going to have full uptime. Basically, it's you can trigger it every 14 seconds. So it just boosts the current character. It's more of like a supportive weapon, but you need your character to create a shield for it to work, which obviously quickly eliminates a lot of characters and makes this weapon effectively just an elemental mastery stat stick, which obviously is not good. Moving on to the characters, these are the catalyst users. We're not going to spend too much time here, so you can use it as I said before, an elemental mastery stat stick on pretty much any character who needs elemental mastery. So obviously you look at someone like Nahida, for example, or I don't know, even like Mona, for example, stuff like that. Just as an elemental mastery stat stick, this is going to work. But if you're looking for characters who can just fully use this weapon, you're looking for only characters who can create a shield, which leaves us with obviously Sitlali and then Beiju and then new Lanyan. Those are the only characters who can just fully use this weapon. It's gonna be pretty good on them. I guess maybe Yanfei at like C2 or C4, C6. I forgot what constellation gives her the ability to create a shield, but she might be one of the characters who can use this weapon. But she's also main DPS, so it's kind of whatever. But yeah, for characters who can just fully use it, it's just as I said before, Lanyan, Sitlali, and then Beiju. That's it. Other than that, you can just use it as an elemental mastery stat stick, and it can be pretty good on that for someone like Nahida, for example, or whatever. But the thing is, we already have good elemental mastery stat sticks. They might not give you that much elemental mastery compared to this weapon, but it's elemental mastery is not like a hard stat to get. If you just need to stack elemental mastery on a character, you can just use like triple main stats or something like that, and you're gonna be fine. You don't need a weapon that's gonna give you that much elemental mastery, especially since that's the only thing this weapon can get. And the good support stuff, which is the damage bonus increase, you cannot really get it unless you activate his shields, which obviously eliminates almost every single catalyst user. So yeah, I definitely don't think this weapon is a good catalyst for you to choose to get on your account. The thing is, fair enough, we don't even have many good catalysts, so I guess it's just average compared to other catalysts. So I'd give it just a 2.5 out of 5 as a weapon you can get. It's a huge elemental mastery stat stick. If you have characters who need that, then maybe go for it. If not, then it's definitely a skip for a weapon. There are many good 4-star weapons who can just give you almost the same stuff. But yeah, that was the video, guys. Tell me what you think of the new weapons in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.